This story will cover from then to now and next, all about change, how to turn losers into winners. The grey heron is one of the best studied birds in Britain, a truly aquatic bird, a symbol of ponds, lakes and rivers. And the common eel, for a long time a mystery, living in fresh water, but it turned out crossing the Atlantic Ocean, a serious sea, and in both directions. Gulls follow the plough, picking up what's brought up to the surface. The heron is an opportunist too. The equivalent of the plough is the ditch digger, and the heron knows exactly where the action is. It could mean food. Bit of a shock if you live down there. Eels are strong and very slippery and exude a kind of mucus, which can help. Bad luck for the heron, but good luck for the eel, which can swim, even slide on, its epic journey. Autumn is when our story starts, here not far from a town called Cirencester near Oxford. We'll follow our two guides, the heron as it flies above and the eel as it swims below. And where better to begin than near the source of one of the most famous rivers in the world, the Thames, appropriately an English pub, the Thames Head Inn, near the source of old Father Thames. We'll look at the new Father Thames and its wildlife and its future. See how it's changed from the famous old Father Thames, starting at the source, a rather disappointing pile of dry stones at this time of year, hardly a bubbling spring. But spring will come in both senses with the rain, as we follow the adult eels on their long journey, eventually to the Sargasso Sea across the other side of the Atlantic where they breed, and the baby eels swim back up the River Thames where a great crested grebe family may benefit from a wriggling snack. The wildlife of this river has its winners and losers. Some are really surprising. On our journey we will reach London, where a massive project under the Thames will start soon, called the Super Sewer. 200 miles to go, over drainage channels where the eels are also on the move, towards the main river. Here near Cricklade in Wiltshire, as the autumn floods fill the young river, a rather special sequence is underway. These low-lying fields may not look much now, but in the spring North Meadow Nature Reserve will be transformed. It's one of the finest examples of lowland hay meadows left in the whole of Europe, with about 80% of the rare snake's head fritillary in an area of about 60 football pitches, 500,000 in 108 acres. And it's because of the seasons of flooding by the Thames that this great change has been maintained with cattle and horses and herons above and eels on their travels downstream, down below. So our two guides move on together in our suggested story as autumn changes. The colour of the countryside and the riverbanks die back on the edge of a quiet little town of Cricklade, some 12 miles from the source. The popular Thames Path will follow the river some 200 miles onwards to London. And so will we, from above and below. Under their black mushrooms along the river bank, fishermen wait patiently as eels move past unseen, probably uncaught so far. To St John's Lock, the first we come to, complete with lock keeper's nice house and garden. Not very busy now, but it will be in a few months, by which time autumn leaves will have fallen and new buds begin. Always an encouraging thought. But mistletoe over the Thames at Henley is a reminder of Christmas, on our 6th month, 200-mile journey from source to the sea. This is the home of rowing, and in summer the Henley Royal Regatta will crowd the river and Temple Island. Our bird fisherman and his potential fishy prey move on past this fishing lodge, built in 1771. Its interior was based on designs found at Pompeii. He may drop into the western edge of London at Teddington Lock, the topmost tidal point of the Thames. Underwater we'll join eels and seals and that potential symbol of the Thames, the salmon. Two fish pass each other, one leaping up, the other sliding and slippering downstream. The heron is going to need all the strength it can get, because it's coming up to a busy time. Herons start breeding very early in the year. They build large nests of sticks, usually high up in the trees, still now not yet in leaf, just ivy-clad. Vegetation of the underwater sort is also an important ingredient in the lives of the spectacular great crested grebe. Once those feathers, like those of egrets, were in demand for fashion, but now they're well protected, and also, like egrets, are definitely winners, not losers any longer. On to Richmond with its bridges and islands at the very west of London. Added to the fish is rather surprisingly bread. Also attracted is this exotic looking introduced species, the mandarin duck, nesting in holes in trees in the wild, possibly more common in this country than in its native China, where it has declined a loser there, a winner over here. Litter, though bad if it's provided as a moored nesting platform, can be really helpful for the grebe pair, whose dance has led to success. Next door there's a pair of coots, who can be quite neurotic, territorial, and now inquisitive. Our rejects their assets. But how safe is it round here? Cormorants are good fishermen and use a very different technique than herons, but both like eels. So eels don't like them, and leaving safety is asking for trouble down there. in gentle Richmond. The grebe chicks have hatched, leaving one egg behind. Eel out for a stroll, not alone, perhaps a swim rather. Egg gone. Grebe, sharp beak, aggro. Remove coot. Return to egg. What egg? Cormorants, no eel. So the eel can swim on down the Thames to the sea. As our heron reaches wider waters and wild marshes, plus quite a few surprises to come. This serious predator flies on to a real water wonderland, in classic barns. Once this was a reservoir which supported some wildlife, but not nearly as much as today. Any losers were helped to become winners, and the whole project has been a huge ongoing success. Certainly herons and eels have prospered, eels if only in the way of a seat where visiting groups can learn about wildfowl and wetlands. The late Sir Peter Scott had this ambitious idea of creating a network of wildfowl and wetland centres around the country, and this one is right by the Thames. Time to move on down the flyway and swimway for our two guides moving on downstream to the sea. From high above the comparatively new landmark, the London Eye, you can look down on some famous places like home to Parliament, Big Ben and the Prime Minister at number 10, Downing Street. And one day a passing heron, that's quite a surprise. And a reminder of just how successful this bird has become. Adaptable to change is the clue, and so wrote Charles Darwin. That could apply to the eel too, as we change rivers, their lifelines, protected or not by the law of the country. Given that eels are declining, should cormorants be controlled more? Many fishermen think so. It's a tricky question. Perhaps its slippery mucus saved the eel, and it now swims on its way to cross the Atlantic Ocean to breed. The hungry cormorant moves on too. London and the Thames are famous for all sorts of reasons. Famous for their buildings and their history, but also for the story of a pure river that was almost killed by man, including its inhabitants. He's probably looking for an eel rather than plastic rubbish, which could kill if swallowed. In some places, reeds have been planted to create a green frontage to the many big new developments along the shore, but the lobe-footed coot still has to pick its way through our detritus, deadly to wildlife, whether it be here in the middle of London or later in the North Sea. Where recently huge sperm whales have starved to death with blocked stomachs, thinking the plastic was food. One of the few winners in this story is the gulls, who are highly adaptable, that key to success, and tough too, quite able to take on a fair bit bigger heron. And what about salmon, those famous travellers across oceans and up rivers to spawn? They're often considered symbolic of the health of the Thames. They both will benefit from a cleaner river. This scene from Ireland, where they had the good sense not to wreck their rivers and kill its wildlife, the golden egg that can bring so much tourism, fishing and lots more. The way of dealing with our increasing production of rubbish has been to float it down to landfill slides near the coast. Big new improvements are being made to London's sewage system, and that means a cleaner Thames for both people and wildlife. The 4-mile Lee Tunnel plus the 15-mile Tideway Tunnel, the super sewer, under the Thames will deliver to Beckton's improved sewage works, then cleaned and returned to the river by 2023, according to Thames Water. This is now a very different Thames from that modest stream at its source over 200 miles from here. It's the Thames Estuary. Here it has some very different neighbours amongst the seaweed. And next to the fragrant sewage pipe, two definite winners in the feeding business. The little egret occupies a niche of mainly eating small fish, including baby eels entering the estuary. They're both heading for a rather unlikely place, quite near the estuary, where the latest catch will be welcome. It's Chafford Gorges, where there's a heronry and egrets too. Now it's delivery time. These heron chicks are well fed, perhaps with the odd eel, and trying out their wings already. Other nests in the heronry start later, like egrets, because they share this safe nesting place, and it's back for more fishing on the Thames Estuary. A heron's eye view for another feeding attempt in front of the RSPB hide, where a photographer and a heron got a massive surprise. Enter a dab chick, little grebe, good swimmer, propelled by its rear end, quite chunky and alert. But the heron is alert too, to almost any kind of meal that it can grab with that effective combination of eyesight, head and neck, and speed of grab, and a deadly dagger-like beak. Lawrence Rogers and his camera saw all that. As the heron grabs the dab chick, it then struggles to swallow it. Nearly manages to swallow it, but it's rather big, even more difficult than an eel perhaps. And finally, watched by an egret and followed by a crow, it will regurgitate the dab chick which goes on to live another Dabchick day. And so, despite a disappointment with the Dabchick, the Herons fishing trip paid off in the end. And away past Little Egrets, they're real winners and very welcome to our shores, be they by rivers, lakes, or in marshes like Rainham, or in towns and even gardens with a pond or stream. They were once threatened by the fashion industry for their plumes, which started the RSPB to protect them, and now much else, inviting the public to their striking visitor centre, and on almost to the sea, the North Sea, and for the eels into it. Perhaps so far so good. They will swim on across the Atlantic and die there, but hopefully will have produced millions of young larvae, which take 3 years to make the return journey, becoming glass eels and struggling up rivers like the Thames. Recently, eel populations have crashed, and major efforts are being made to help them, turning them from losers into winners. At least this one got away, despite some neat juggling by the cormorant. Dolphins, seals, even a bottle-nosed whale famously swam in. Hopefully that very ambitious project under the Thames, the super sewer, will help into the future. Super sewer, sandbanks, seals, and a sunset. What else could we hope for? All part of one of the greatest rivers in the world.